Welcome back to Local Decision 2020. I'm Rusty Ray and joined now by a candidate for State House out of District 38A as Republican Donald Raleigh. Donald, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
This is an opportunity to fill the seat by Linda Runbeck, who's held the seat for quite a while and has risen to a prominence in the State House.
She has, yes.
And so it's not as simple as saying, well, we're going to continue everything that she does and everything that she says. Has there been an opportunity to talk with people in this district about what they want to see happen in St. Paul?
Absolutely. One of the things that I've seen over and over again, and I've heard at the doors, is people want security. They want our way of life to continue. And that's not some, rhetoric that I'm trying to say as far as our way of life. What I'm saying is we want security. We want good jobs. We want great education. We want our children back in school. And the time that she spent, that Linda Runbeck spent in the House, is completely different than the time that we're facing going forward. We've got a biennium that's going to be coming up where we went from about a $2 billion plus, and I'm not going to use exact numbers because numbers are a fickle thing sometimes, but we went from about a $2 billion surplus to now about a $3 billion deficit, which is a total span of about $5 billion. And that's not something that we've seen in Minnesota, I believe, ever before.
And is there anything that you feel like the state can do to, everybody may have a different perspective of how to shore that up as we move into a new year or as you get ready for that next budget, as you said, come, I guess, in the springtime.
Yep.
But is there a way to maybe shore things up or change the way the state gets some of that revenue so that the next time this does happen, should it happen again, that it's not quite the same position? You don't have this huge swing of $5 billion.
Right. Well, it's unprecedented times due to what happened with COVID and the shutdown of businesses. We saw an increase of millions of dollars from 2016 to 2020 as far as the revenue that we've taken into the state. And I think we have to get out of the cycle of tax and spend. We have to be more fiscally conservative and take a look at some of the revenue opportunities that are coming in and not see them as opportunities to increase spending, but look at opportunities to fund the mandates that we have right now and stop putting additional mandates in place. We can't fund everything, and that's going to be the very difficult position that we're in going into the legislature in 2021 and the next few years, is we have to look at it from a responsible standpoint. We're going to have to tighten our belts, and that's going to be a difficult position for anybody to be in, whether you're Democrat or Republican. And so we're going to have to be able to message clearly to the public why we're doing things, what we're doing, and then really importantly, why some of the programs are not either going to get funded completely or some of the programs are going to have to be pared back over the next couple of years.
Is that an even more difficult task coming out of the beginning of this year? Again, everything has changed, but at the beginning of this year, we were looking at a bonding bill and we were looking at opportunities to use that surplus that was forecasted, or people who are saying we need to spend more on education, or people are saying fix all of these roads and fix them now,
right?
Or saying we need to do A, B, and C. With that mindset coming in and then everything having changed, is that an even tougher sell for voters right now?
It's going to be. Education right now is comprised, over 40% of our budget goes into education. And then if you add in higher education at the university level, which adds another 7%, the bulk of our revenues are spent on education in one form or another. We absolutely can't lose sight of the fact that the children have to be trained. They have to have the opportunity to get good education and then later on get great paying jobs. We took a look at some of the opportunities that our children have in for the Forest Lake School District, where they've got a work-study program that allows them to get into some of these manufacturing companies or into a good union shop where they can learn a skill, they can learn a trade. I think one of the things that COVID has taught us is with the stay-at-home education and with the other opportunities that are now presenting ourselves, we really should kind of clear the table, and instead of fighting amongst each other and you've got a D, therefore you're this or that, or you've got an R and you're this or that, we should really take a look at what good ideas does everyone have and then apply those ideas in a fair and equitable manner. We can't lose sight of the fact that we have to educate our children. But we also need to understand that the budget that we have for education is a very, very large part of our budget. It is, again, like I said, over 40%. And because of that, it's probably going to be an area where we're going to have to ask some tough questions. Now, even bringing this up with you, Rusty, I'm positive that the people that are listening to this are going to say, well, what are you going to cut? And the issue is, I don't know yet. We have to take a look at the entire budget, and I would suggest that we take a look at everything. I don't want to have anything off the table, but those things that are important, like education and taking care of our seniors, they have to be a priority for us.
To extend that just a little bit, you have said that you feel like for every student, college may not be the only solution.
That's correct.
And you have advocated for people to perhaps pursue trade schools or those degrees that you mentioned just a moment ago, where you get the hands-on experience, you can get a good paying job, it's a skilled labor kind of job. Still, that doesn't seem to be a top of mind for every situation or every family, and that you want to hopefully expand that?
Well, absolutely, because if you take a child and you put them into a 4-year program, that's for some people. It's not going to be for everybody. We're America. We're an exceptional country. We build things, we make things, we fix things. And I don't think that the idea of unions being this or being bad or good is a topic that we should engage in. What I really think we should talk about is what's best for our children. Getting school choice, I think, is going to be on the table now because of what COVID has taught us. But I also think that giving a child a choice to get into a union, to be able to get into a good paying job, to be able to get a trade or a skill is going to propel them into the future and not only help that child, but help our workforce. Right now, the Carpenters Union is looking for skilled laborers. The HVAC and masons and bricklayers, they're begging for the next generation to step up and take these jobs. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to have a student that's going to make this decision. If they can get into a work-study program, they're going to have 1 or 2 years, depending on when they enter it, of valuable on-the-job experience that's going to propel them into the American dream. Buy a house, get married, 2.5 children and a dog.
And also something that you talk a lot about, having public safety and having that protection there, and that something that you want to see the state focus on, or is it more of hearing some of the language from some factions saying you need to do this with police and police need to change for a different model? You've been very outspoken about that.
Absolutely. So we're in the northern suburbs. We have great relationships with our police officers. They're part of our community. They're members that are working every single day for safety and security. They want to go home to their families just as much as we do. When you hear some of the rhetoric, and that's coming out of the Twin Cities, that's not our lifestyle. That is not what we're facing up here in the northern suburbs. And when we see that happen, people get very concerned because we have a great relationship with the police. I hold a degree in emergency and disaster management. For the past 12 years, I've worked with something called the Civil Air Patrol, which is the auxiliary of the United States Air Force. Now, I'm not endorsed by the Air Force, and I'm not claiming that there's any connection with my candidacy to the Air Force or the Civil Air Patrol. But that volunteer service that I've done for the last 12 years has equipped me on the ground responding to emergencies like the flooding up in the Red River Valley, of which I received a disaster ribbon from President Obama. So a little bit of bipartisanship on that side. But those types of experiences have taught me it's not about getting a police officer to engage you at the moment of a crisis. It's about engaging them in our community prior to that. You don't want to negotiate how you're going to respond to a crisis at the moment of crisis. We've got to get our police and our community more engaged like we've seen in the northern suburbs. When a police officer drives by in our neighborhoods, we absolutely wave at them. We will actually stop them, see how things are going, find out what we can do to help them out. I saw a great Facebook post on a neighborhood. It's one of the things that I follow over in Circle Pines, Blaine area where I live. And they said, if you're a police officer and you're hungry or you're thirsty or you just, if it's hot out and you want to come in the house, come into our house. That's the types of inclusive neighborhoods that we've got. We want to make sure that we're working with the police and not at the moment of a crisis. Then it's too late.
As the state kind of took on COVID, the crisis of COVID in the beginning in spring, there seemed to be a real unified effort across the aisle in St. Paul to say, okay, we can do this, and the governor took some extraordinary measures to kind of gain control of that and make some decisions. As the summer wore on, it became a less friendly conversation, again, mostly on partisan lines. As we move into a new term and new state house, new makeup of the state legislature, do you see that will continue, that there will be this kind of partisan staking of ground and fighting against what Governor Walz may be trying to do in some cases, not in every case? Or do you expect that there will be, with new people coming in, there may be a little difference in that?
Well, with emergency powers, there's going to be a reaction to what's called the exigency of the moment. That means there's an ongoing prevalent crisis right now that has to be reacted to. Specifically to the governor having the ability to have emergency powers, I support that. From the standpoint of we had to have an immediate reaction. We had to have somebody that could make immediate decisions. Once the crisis has gone from the immediacy of the response of the crisis, we have to move into recovery, and that recovery period does not require the governor to have an emergency power. It surpasses and takes away the way that our legislature and our judicial system works in conjunction with the executive side. And kind of to answer your question a little bit deeper, I would personally vote to end his emergency powers. The reason is because the immediacy of the onset of the crisis is over. And as a person that's steeped in emergency and disaster management, I can tell you every single emergency response says that that's the way that it should go. Handle the emergency, then move into recovery. And we should be in the recovery phase right now, not in an immediate response to the initial impact.
What are some other ways that we'll know that this is a recovery phase? What else does that look like? Does that look like any sort of extended relief for business? I mean, there's been federal relief and there's been some ways for them to get immediate monies, but on a state level, does that look like anything else in particular to you?
Well, specifically, Anoka County has come out with some programs either via business loans or some business grants. It really comes down to trusting people. I'm a big proponent that we as Minnesotans, we're smart. We're going to wear masks when it makes sense. We're going to protect each other. But it doesn't mean that we have to have mandates to shut each other down. I don't believe that that is going to give us the opportunity both to grow our businesses and then increase the amount of relations or interactions that we have out in public. I want to go to church. I want to go to the various events that are going on. That's who we are. It's the summer. And we can do that in a smart manner by doing things that are smart. Like, for example, on the front door of my business, I've got a sign. If you're sick, make sure that you go home. If you are walking into the building, wear a mask. You do the same thing here at the studio. It's about making sure that we're all being safe. It's about making sure, though, that we don't take mandates and make them oppressive on both our businesses and our population.
I'll get you out of here with this. What is your feeling about having this experience, running for this seat, running for office in 2020, given all of this context and given all of this that's happened? And also, maybe people aren't face-to-face talking as much anymore. Are you getting out, trying to meet people, knock on doors if you're willing and they're willing and things like that? What's that been like?
Yeah, we've taken a very responsible approach to door knocking. Knock on the door, we'll step back, and I have found over and over again people are very willing to engage. In fact, most people will say that they appreciate that we're there. They get a chance to look at the candidate and share their experiences and their questions with me. The number one question, well, actually number one and two are, what are we going to do about education? How are we going to get our kids back into school? And over again, that tension that we're having between the children having to stay home and then the parents having to stay home, because in our economy and Minnesota being the 5th highest tax state in the nation, both parents in many cases have to work. Because of that, we're having additional costs of childcare and other things. We need to get our kids back into school. Number 2 is healthcare. So education first and then healthcare second. We've got to take care of our seniors. We've got to make sure that we're making smart choices and protecting those that are the most vulnerable in our society.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Donald Raleigh, thank you for coming by.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate your time.
You got it.